and welcome back to my channel. My name is Erica Marie LaPrey Emelander, and I'm an author of 10 historic fiction novels. I also love teaching and learning about history. Today marks Veterans Day, or Armistice Day, which commemorates the end of World War I, and it's now a day to celebrate and thank all of the veterans in our history. Here's a couple of my favorites. I'm going to talk to you today about a local West Michigan hero, Joseph Beyrle. He was an American soldier who fought in World War II, and his story is absolutely made for Hollywood. Joe was 18 when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor in 1941 and pulled the United States into the Second World War. After graduating from St. Joseph High School in Muskegon, Joe actually could have accepted a baseball scholarship and attend the Notre Dame University, but instead he chose to fight for his country. He became a part of the 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment of the 101st Airborne Screaming Eagles. This group specialized in radio communications and demolition. During jump school, Joe earned the nickname Jumping Joe, and many of his fellow trainees would actually pay him $5 to make a jump in their name. In 1943, Joe volunteered for a dangerous series of missions where he would parachute into France with a backpack full of gold coins for the French resistance. Once he handed off the gold, Joe was moved around constantly by members of the resistance to escape detection from the Nazis, and 7 to 10 days later, he'd be picked up and brought back to England, where he was based. Joe ran this mission multiple times, though he knew that if he failed, he would be immediately executed by the enemy. Then came the invasion of Normandy. The night before D-Day, Joe and others from the 101st jumped behind enemy lines so they could destroy bridges and cut power supply lines to soften the Nazi defenses for the men who would land on Utah Beach. As the men prepared to jump, several planes were hit by enemy fire and explosions filled the air. Joe landed on a roof of a church, climbed down it, and became a singular man on a mission. Alone in France with no idea where the rest of his unit was, Joe blew up a power substation and ambushed a squad of German infantry by throwing grenades at them. As he moved to blow up a bridge, he stumbled into a Nazi bunker where he was forced to surrender. After his capture, Joe was brought deeper into France to a temporary POW camp. Not much later, the entire group was bombed by an unknown attacker, and Joe used the distraction to make his escape. He was able to avoid capture for 12 hours, but was eventually apprehended, thrown into a truck, and brought to another POW camp. Once there, he was interrogated and beaten so severely that he was sent to the infirmary. He suffered 3 months of starvation, beatings, interrogations, and being moved around to other camps. He and other prisoners were forced to work during the day, survive bombings from the Allies during the night, and they continued to face bad weather, disease, and exhaustion. Joe was finally transferred to a POW camp in Poland. On a frigid November night in 1944, Joe and 3 other American POWs cut through barbed wire and made their escape south. They snuck into a railway station to hop a train, hoping they could meet up with the Red Army, or the Soviet Union. Unfortunately, they were on the wrong train and ended up in Berlin. Luckily, they were able to link up with the German underground resistance, a group who tried to help the Allies during the war. Joe and the other soldiers successfully hid for almost a week before the Gestapo found them. Joe was again interrogated, tortured, and even more brutally abused before he was handed off to the German army. Once again confined to a prison in Poland, Joe was punished for his previous escapes, and it took months for him to get his strength back. Once he did, he escaped again. Even though it was January, Joe dove into a frigid river to throw off the trail of German shepherd dogs that had been sent out to hunt him down. Sadly, 3 soldiers who escaped with him this time were gunned down as they neared the river. Joe finally reached Soviet lines and met up with the 1st Guards Tank Army, led by Battalion Commander Alexandra Semyusenko, the only female tank commander of World War II, and honestly, she deserves a movie of her own. Joe spoke little Russian, but convinced the army to let him join their unit. He was issued a gun and ammo and promptly moved with the Russians, assisting them in liberating a POW camp, which just so happened to be the same camp he had just escaped from. This was done in a short, bloody fight, and Joe was able to raid the camp office and locate and take his own POW photo. He continued to fight with the Soviet Union in Poland, where he was wounded in the leg and then sent to the U.S. Embassy in Moscow. Once there, the ambassador didn't believe Joe was who he claimed to be, as records show that Joseph R. Beyrle had been declared killed in action on June 10, 1944. The ambassador thought Joe was a German spy, so he was shipped around Europe until his identity was established and confirmed. Joe finally returned home on April 11, 1945. Once back in the United States, he visited with his family, who had believed he had been dead, went to Miami Beach for rest and recuperation, and was finally honorably discharged from the Army due to his injuries. Joe was eventually awarded the Purple Heart. He later married Joanne Hallowell on September 14, 1946, in the same church and by the same priest who had officiated at his funeral mass 2 years earlier when he had been presumed dead. After the war, Joe worked as a supervisor for the Brunswick Corporation in Muskegon until 1981 and was well liked by all who knew him. He died on December 12, 2004 at the age of 81 and was buried at Arlington National Cemetery. You can read more about Joe's life in The Simple Sounds of Freedom, also published as Beyond Hitler's Lines. I'd also like to take this time again to thank all the veterans out there for volunteering to fight to keep our freedom. Happy Veterans Day today and every day. Thanks so much for watching. If you like the content, like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. You can also let me know in the comments what kind of content you'd like to see in the future. This could be more history, I could even do some shorts, or would you even like to see some videos on my writing process? I hope you all have a great rest of your day.